On today's episode of the Football Fellowship podcast, we'll be breaking down the penultimate weekend of Premier League action. Arsenal's 1-0 victory over United confirmed that the title decider will be going to the last weekend. City also picked up a massive 4-0 victory over Fulham to help their goal difference, and we'll be looking ahead to see who can get that job done. Lots to play for in the European places as well. Spurs picking up 3 points, Chelsea picking up 3 points, and a lot of competition for those Europa League and Conference League places as well. And in terms of the relegation race, it was all but decided that Luton, Burnley and Sheffield will be going down next season. As always, make sure you stick around towards the end of the episode for some more rounds of Football Tenable, more rounds of the Football Fellowship quiz for you to watch and to play along as well.
Welcome back, and yes, the penultimate week of the Premier League has finished, and it's left a little bit of an anticlimactic feel, I think. We were all looking at the fixtures on the final day, thinking to ourselves, yes, there's going to be so much still to play for in the relegation, in the fight for Europe, and for the title race, but it seems it's coming to a bit of an end, a bit sooner than we all anticipated. But one thing that is still up for grabs is the Premier League title, as we start off with Manchester United 0, Arsenal 1. And I'll be honest, Arsenal were heavy favourites coming into this game, going to Old Trafford against a very poor Man United side on a bit of a bad run, especially coming up against Crystal Palace last weekend and losing to them 4-0 at Selhurst Park. But then when you saw that team news come in and you looked at the Man United side, I bet you 100% Arsenal fans were probably rubbing their hands with glee, looking at it and thinking, this is their chance. It didn't quite work out like that, I think it's fair to say, Toby, but I think at this stage of the season, the 3 points is all that matters.
Yeah, I think you've got that spot on, especially in terms of the lineup. Seeing Amrabat start, who has not had a good time at United. No Bruno Fernandes, who has probably been one of their best players, especially in recent weeks. His form has really picked up. A centre-back partnership of Casemiro and Johnny Evans. You just think the way that Arsenal have been attacking and scoring goals, this could be a game where it's going to be 3-4 goals for Arsenal against United, and United really sitting back and looking to counter. And I think the only glimpse of that we got was maybe the first 2 minutes of the game, where Arsenal looked pretty sharp. They got the ball nice and high really early, had a really good spell of possession within those first few minutes. And then after that, it was a very boring game of football, unfortunately, I think it's fair to say. I think maybe Arsenal fans enjoyed it and had that pressure and that nervousness that gave it a little bit more excitement. But otherwise, yeah, as you said, I think it was a case of Arsenal sitting back, using their defensive strength as the main impact to win this game, and just not wanting to risk maybe attacking too much with how much is on the line in this game. And ultimately it did work and got 3 points, but not in a way I think a lot of people would have hoped, especially with the way Arsenal have been playing.
Yeah, but I think it's quite interesting the way Arsenal have approached games away from home, because now they've been unbeaten against the Big Six in the Premier League all season long. You've taken lots of points against the Big Six at home, beating a lot of them with the likes of Liverpool and Manchester City, and you've gone away and you've done the job on a number of the attacks. And I think it's actually a tactic that Arteta is doing and implementing, and it's working, I think, because if you beat the big sides at home and then don't lose to them away, and in some cases you even get the 3 points, then I think there's nothing really to worry about. And I think part of the boring aspect, which I do agree with you on about the game, I think that comes from the fact that we all have such confidence in this Arsenal back line and the midfielders in front of them and the goalkeeper, that we just there's a trust and there's a belief that they won't be broken down. And if you are going to score against them, then it's going to have to be something either miraculous or an absolute howler, like we saw against Spurs in the derby. So I think it's one where I think you've got to give credit to Arsenal and the defence, Mikel Arteta and the coaches and everyone at Arsenal, because they've, coached this team to an inch of perfection. And not only that, they've got an aura around them. And I think, most teams go up against them and think, we're going to have to give it a go, but, we don't expect to get anything. And I think despite the fact that United had a lot of counterattacks in that second half especially, they had a couple of chances when in decent positions, but they weren't the best of chances, if we're being honest. An XG of only 0.51 over the course of the entire game. I think that comes down to the aura around Arsenal. And, at the end of the day, 1-0 to the Arsenal.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't want to discredit that Arsenal defensive performance by saying it was sort of boring, because I think in those big away games, that is something that you do have to do. And I think in this game, Saliba and Gabriel were just absolutely exceptional again. Saliba especially. I think a lot of Arsenal fans may agree with me that Gabriel has probably actually been our best defender this season. He's really gone under the radar and has maybe not got the plaudits he deserved. But in this game in particular, Saliba just did not put a foot wrong. I think he had most touches, most passes. I think he had one of the highest tackle rates. He was just so good, especially playing on that right side of the centre-back partnership where Garnacho was probably looking their most dangerous player. He did take it round Ben White a couple of times, but as soon as he got to Saliba, just absolutely no chance. He was incredible in this game, and to be able to set up the team around that defence in away games is a huge asset and something we have improved massively on over the last couple of years. The only potentially worrying thing I think for me is if we didn't get that early goal through Trossard, a lot of our sort of play in the middle third was quite sloppy in terms of countering. We had a few opportunities where Partey picked up the ball in particular, and we just struggled to move it forward and attack. And luckily in this game, it didn't matter because United didn't have too many chances of their own. But I think if we didn't get that goal in the first half, and we did have to start coming out in that second half, it just didn't feel quite as fluid. But as you've said, to be able to have that tactic of relying on the defence and that being your first sort of port of call to win these games or to get very important points, like we said away against Manchester City, and for Arteta to be able to go and get a win at Old Trafford, looking at our record over the last 20 years at Old Trafford has been really poor, is just another step in how this Arsenal side is evolving.
I wouldn't be too pessimistic about it though, mate, because I think so many times that we've been talking about Arsenal and the set pieces this season, how they they scored the most goals from set pieces, has been a really key source of goals for them and turning games. But I think like a lot of the time, Arsenal were winning the first header from most of the corners they were getting. Man United weren't getting close. On another day, you go ahead and you score one of those headers from Saliba or Gabriel, and I don't think you get a second, you open the scoring through that way, or you get a second one after the Trossard goal. And I think to say, okay, now happy days. But also United were, setting up very defensive because of the fact that they lost to Crystal Palace last Monday night. And they were trying to not embarrass themselves. They were trying to contain Arsenal and they were working around you and what were your weaknesses and trying to exploit them as much as possible and trying to negate you having some attacking play which is going to break them down. So I think teams are going to do that where they're going to come against Arsenal and think, right, stop them first and then we'll focus on scoring. And they've United focused so much on trying to stop Arsenal that they're going to end up scoring themselves. So I don't think it's the end of the world. And besides, it's the penultimate game of the season. There's only one more to go. Trying to find new ways of trying to break a team down is going to be next season's problem anyway. And you've got new signings to factor in. You've got players coming back from injury to also to factor into that as well. So I don't think it's the end of the world. But Man United, did you see some improvements in this performance against Arsenal than the one against Crystal Palace last weekend?
Oh, 100%. I think United were actually fairly impressive, especially in terms of the form that we've seen in recent weeks. And as you said, them setting up to try and prevent us, I think worked really well. In this game, we could not play out of the back to save our lives. A lot of balls coming long from Raya. There were times where Saliba and Gabriel were quite hesitant. There weren't many options out. And I think a lot of that was not because of Arsenal struggling to do it, but because United prevented it really well. They were pressing, I think, fantastically, especially on the back four, and they had a really nice solid mid-block where, as I said, Arsenal were giving away that ball in the middle of the park. I think a lot of the time United were winning that and being able to drive forward, and I think if they just had someone like Bruno Fernandes, I think, sitting in that number 10 position where once they'd won that ball, give that to him and get him to find that killer pass on the counter-attack, they could have had a little bit more luck, but they were just unable to get that sort of final piece of the puzzle in the final third. But I think in the mid-third, the United were really good and quite impressive, I thought. How did you see them?
Yeah, I thought they were so much better. I thought that for the first time in a few weeks, there's some structure and patterns of play. I could recognise the fact that Amrabat, when in possession, was dropping in between the two centre backs to try and link up the play, to try and give Casemiro and Johnny Evans a bit of a helping hand. I think the positioning of Diogo Dalot was really interesting, especially before the goal, because I think after the goal, United were chasing the game a little bit more, and it kind of became a bit blurred where he was playing. But especially before the goal, he was popping up positions in the middle of the pitch alongside Scott McTominay, who was just behind Rasmus Højlund, the number 9. And I thought to myself, what on earth is he doing there? He was on the right side of the midfield in like zone 14 when he was playing left back. And I thought that was really interesting. And I thought to myself, okay, how are Arsenal going to stop that? Because he had that one shot from distance. Bukayo Saka didn't track him. And I thought, well, that could be a problem. It didn't materialise because Arsenal did get a bit of more of a foothold in the game when they did take the lead. But I thought there were signs to be positive. I thought the wide players were really impressive. Garnacho and Amad Diallo both had 7 dribbles in the game. 5 was successful for Garnacho and 4 was successful for Diallo. I thought they looked like they had some threat, but I agree with you that they got themselves into promising positions, but they needed someone of the likes of Bruno Fernandes to unlock the defence when they needed it most, to make that killer pass. And I don't think they had that quality. I think Scott McTominay is a good footballer when used at the right times. I think when he's starting against Arsenal and you ask him to try and unlock a defence, I don't think it's going to happen. And that's just being kind. I think we all know what Scott McTominay is good at, but that definitely isn't one of his strengths. But I think it is encouraging signs. The only question I have is, will this continue? Will we see this in future games? It doesn't necessarily have to be this style of play and the instructions that were put out against Arsenal, but I just want to be able to see a coherent plan on a pitch and for it to have some effect. I think that's all we're asking for, really.
Yeah, and I think that's something that Ten Hag is able to do really well. He is a fantastic tactician, and I think he does seem to set up and play better maybe in those big games where he is preparing specifically for the opponents as opposed to sort of the season-long game plan playing against the teams lower in the league, which is where United have struggled a lot of the time, especially that 4-0 loss to Crystal Palace. I think is such a statement and one that shows that when they are committing too much forward, they don't have that cover. They're very easily run through the midfield at the moment, and the way they set up in this game to not be against Arsenal was really positive. I'm still not too convinced that there's going to be much difference in any of the other games and over a longer term in terms of a season. So it'd be interesting to see how they play in these last 2 games of the season. They have got Newcastle next, so that could be a fairly good test, I think, to see maybe where their level is. They are sitting in sort of a similar position to Newcastle on the table. But again, after this quite impressive performance against Arsenal in terms of how they set up to prevent them, I wouldn't be surprised if now we go and see more inconsistency from United and they really struggle against Newcastle. So we'll have to see. And I think at the end of the season, there is still big question marks, even though this was a more positive performance from United.
Yeah, and one thing they absolutely have to do is they need to get some service to Rasmus Højlund. He had 17 touches all game, which is the lowest of any player who started the game, of all 22 players. And I think the fact that he had one shot, which is the one where Scott McTominay dispossessed Thomas Partey early on in the game, Højlund had the shot and he slipped and he scuffed it way over the bar. So they need to be getting the number 9 some more chances. But I need to ask you about Casemiro, Toby, just because there's been a lot of talk about him on social media, especially after the Crystal Palace game. Now again, especially for the goal, he was about 5 to 10 yards further back than the rest of the defensive line. He was jogging. It looked like he couldn't be bothered. But the rest of the game, I think he did it right. I mean, Kai Havertz was kept on dropping in deep, so he didn't really have a number 9 to be marking, which is a very different challenge to the one against Jean-Philippe Mateta in that Palace game, as we mentioned. But what did you make of Casemiro? Because this was someone who were talking about being one of the best defensive midfielders in the world 2 seasons ago, and in the Prem last season. What's all gone wrong for him?
It is a really, really difficult one with Casemiro because you can't overlook how poor he has been this season. We can think of the player that he was obviously at Madrid, and he even was in that first season with United. He was absolutely fantastic playing in the double pivot. Now this season, as you've said, there's no sense of commitment. He's having to play in centre-back, which obviously does not suit him at all, despite being a defensive midfielder and a really good sort of recovery player, someone who is going to get you that really high volume of interceptions and tackles. Playing as a centre-back is a completely different role. When you are a centre-back, you aren't committing those defensive actions in terms of tackles and interceptions. It's more about the spacing, something that you need to learn over 10, 15 years in your career. And as we see players like Van Dijk, they seem to get better as they get older. And throwing Casemiro into centre-back, I think, especially the form he had at the start of the season wasn't great. Moved into centre-back and it's just completely dipped. I think maybe next season he just needs a big reset, really try and assess whether he does have that commitment, because as you said, it seems like he isn't even playing in terms of sort of pressing and running. Maybe get someone who can sit alongside him and they can complement each other and try and get him back to that form that we first saw at United. At the moment, it doesn't work in playing centre-back, but unfortunately, Man United don't really have many other options. Camboala did come on in this game, and I think he's got to start next game and to move Casemiro out of that defence. and then over the summer reassess who's going to be playing next to Casemiro. Because I think you can still get the best out of him. I think there is still an absolutely world-class player in there, and I don't think one season should potentially change that, if you agree.
Yeah, I agree. I think he desperately needs the players who are fit in and around him or in the first team, and he needs someone with a lot of legs. A bit like how I think Jorginho has Declan Rice next to him, because Declan Rice just runs and runs, runs. He's basically effectively two players, and Jorginho was a player who we're all questioning when he signed for Arsenal, saying he doesn't really have the legs. Why on earth are Arsenal signing him? But in the right system with the right players around him, I think he can absolutely thrive, and I think the same can be said for Casemiro. But a side who have no such problems and have no such problems in dominating games of football are Manchester City, as they went away to Fulham and beat them 4-0. And this was a very, very, very comprehensive victory, Toby. I think it's fair to say this was one where Man City had the early kickoff. We were all looking at them, Fulham in the sun, mid-table. Were they going to give anything against Man City? They started off the first 10 minutes quite well, but then after that first Josko Gvardiol goal, it was all one-way traffic, and City just looked immaculate, didn't they?
Yeah, it could have been 6 or 7, honestly. Haaland had another good couple chances that he missed. I think they hit the post once or twice, City. Complete domination, especially when they get that early goal, City. Even though it is an away game, you just think it's game over. Like when I saw the score, I wasn't watching the game, and I saw the score pop up 1-0, it was like, okay, done. I just gave up hope that Fulham were able to do us a favour and get a draw or a win, because when they go up, it's just impossible. Because do you start to come out and try and get a goal for yourself and expose that space that City can just so easily pass around? Do you just sit back and allow them to have even more of the ball and create even more chances? It's such a difficult situation, and City took full advantage, able to get a 4-0 win, able to help their goal difference massively, able to keep that confidence and that morale, that momentum rolling really, really high. And yeah, just an almost faultless performance from Manchester City against a side who are decent and having a good season. Maybe not the best form as of late, but yeah, just so much praise for Man City in this one. They were as we expect.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be fair, I completely agree on Fulham's recent form. I think 2 losses and 2 draws, although the 2 losses were, I think, Liverpool and Man City. So it's not the easiest of fixtures either. But I can completely understand. I mean, coming up against this Man City side and the form they were in, I mean, especially after they got their first goal, Fulham looked like it was men against boys. Honestly, that first goal, I think only Manchester City and Arsenal can score that type of goal in the Premier League. The way that it's 1 and 2 touch passing from Foden, Kevin De Bruyne, and Gvardiol, and the fact that your left back is scoring that type of goal on his weaker foot, I think, yeah, it is just mesmerizing at times. And you just think to yourself, how on earth are they doing this? No one can get close to them. But then after that, I mean, Phil Foden had a great game. Bernardo Silva had a great game. I thought, they were completely dominant, and Fulham didn't really stand a chance. But I think Josko Gvardiol has got a bit of stick this season. I think his price tag hasn't helped him. And as we always say, especially under Pep Guardiola, signings need to give, you need to give him 2 seasons. You need to give him a bit more time. But then especially this back half of the season, he's starting games of football regularly at left back despite being centre back is one of those versatility traits that Pep Guardiola really likes in his players, especially helps his total football style of play. And the fact that now he's getting crucial goals, 2 against Fulham today. He scored a banger against Real Madrid in the Champions League in the first leg, got a couple more in the Premier League as well. He's really stepped up to the plate. And when you've got so many world-class players, the fact that even your less important players, I think it's fair to call Gvardiol that, the fact that they're stepping up as well. I mean, are they going to lose against Spurs? Are they going to lose against West Ham? I don't think so.
Yeah, Gvardiol has been a really, really interesting one this season. When he first signed, I don't think we were too sure if he was going to be playing left centre-back or left-back. Where would he fit into this Manchester City team, a team already stacked with fantastic defenders? He seems to have almost made that left-back position his own now. I think he can't be dropped, really. He's played so well in the last 5, 6, 7 games. And I think he has really worked on that attacking play going forward. And overall, that has helped City so much, because we saw, especially in this first goal, teams are really going to have a problem now where, with Kyle Walker playing on that right side, someone who can overlap and combine with whoever may be on the right wing, normally Foden, they need 2 players there to cover it. They need to shift that back line down to the right-hand side to avoid those sort of attacks. previously we may have seen Nathan Ake be more of sort of an occupier of space as opposed to someone who's really, really sort of direct and getting loads of assists and running behind, and maybe is more sort of supporting the winger or the attacking midfielder on that hand side. He normally sits in that. He sort of sits in that weird pocket of space, the top corner of the 18-yard box, and allows the players to move around him. Whereas now with Gvardiol and the way he's bombing forward, we saw in that first goal how much space he had because Fulham didn't probably see him as too much of a threat. He has quite clearly really worked on that attacking play. Normally when we saw him for Leipzig and Croatia, we saw how solid he was, how good of a recovery runner he was. Whereas now he's just bombing completely down the other end of the pitch and is just another avenue of success and another avenue for goals that City have, which they didn't need. They didn't need any more goals, but now they've got it. They just look even better. So if you're West Ham and Tottenham, I'm not even sure how you set up to combine against that, because you almost do need at least 5 players sitting along the back line. Spurs are going to have to sit back a little bit if they want to get anything out of this game. I don't think, obviously, this really attacking football that Ange plays, I think is just too much of a risk with the way City are playing at the moment. And I think Spurs as well, it would be good for them to get a point out of this. It keeps them maybe in the contention for the top 4. And they're going to have to somehow cover both fullbacks and both wingers and also keep Haaland occupied with a player. It's a super, super difficult task for them. Do you see any way that Spurs or West Ham can set up to try and nullify this City attack?
Yeah, don't forget to mention Kevin De Bruyne, Phil Foden, Bernardo Silva, and if they choose to bring them off the bench, Jack Grealish, Jeremy Doku, Julian Alvarez. I mean, it doesn't look great, does it? I think the only thing is, it's the recent record that City have against Spurs in the new stadium, where they've only beaten them once, and that was in the FA Cup this season. So the fact that that was this season might give them a bit more confidence. But really, when your team performing at this level, this late on the season, do you have the confidence anyway? You know your own abilities. You know you can beat anyone on your day. I think Spurs will give them a game, because I think what will really incentivize them is, I think Liverpool will probably beat Aston Villa on the Monday night today as we're recording this, which means that it might leave the door a little bit open for Spurs to go on and think to themselves, if they beat Man City, then they've got a chance, because I think it's Aston Villa go away to Crystal Palace on the last day of the season, which isn't an easy game considering how well Crystal Palace have been playing recently, especially under Oliver Glasner. So I think Man City will probably win the game, if we're being honest. But I expect Spurs to give them a good game. But the West Ham game, I think it is a foregone conclusion that Man City will win that. But I will make a prediction and say that I think at half-time in that game, Man City will be losing. And we'll all be like, oh my God, is it going to happen? And we'll all be sending, the memes of Steve Carell in the office being like, it's happening. And then be like, nobody panic. But I think, I've been in this situation twice as a Liverpool fan against Man City in the last day. I think they were losing at halftime in both situations and they went on to win. So I think Man City will win the league. I think they'll beat Spurs. I think they'll beat West Ham. And unfortunately, I think it's curtains for Arsenal.
I'm going to have to hope and pray that Spurs can get something. I think Spurs could get a point. I could see a 1-1, a 2-2. I think if Spurs find a happy compromise between defending really, really solidly and then being able to break through, sort of looking at Son, I could see Brennan Johnson starting as being a really good outlet for them. Maybe they can get something out of this game. I'm being super, super optimistic. I don't just want to think City are going to win it, because I think with that West Ham game, it's going to be super difficult for them. West Ham are just going to sit so deep, which I think may help prevent City a little bit. But I don't think West Ham are going to have the same outlet in terms of sort of a counter as Spurs would. So I'm going to have to hope, and I'm going to predict that Spurs get a point, then Man City win on the final day, but we nick it on goal difference just by like 1 or 2 goals, because I think City will put maybe at least 2 or 3 past West Ham. Hopefully, obviously with our win against Everton, we are still a little bit ahead of goal difference at the moment. Let's hope. Come on, Spurs. I'm so excited to support Spurs, because it will never happen again. So I've got to make the most of it for this one game, and I'm so excited for it, which is just crazy.
Well, mate, never say never. There might be another similar situation in the future. Who knows? But we should move on then to the relegation race. Well, not really much of a race, as it seems practically over, because Nottingham Forest, they lost the game to Chelsea 3-2 at the City Ground. However, because of other results, they now find themselves 3 points clear of Luton Town, who we will come on to soon. But they have a better goal difference of 11. No, actually, yeah, better goal difference of 12. So it looks very likely that Nottingham Forest are going to be safe and in the Premier League next season. But this game was absolutely bonkers, end to end. Forest scoring, Chelsea scoring, decisions. This game had everything, didn't it?
Yeah, it really did. And I think you could tell from the off that the Forest fans even just wanted to see a good game. I don't think they really cared about getting any points, to be honest. It was such a good atmosphere in there. Forest really, really went for it, as did Chelsea. And I think we expect that from Chelsea at the moment. Really, really good going forward, but also looking a little bit open in terms of that counter attack that we spoke about a few weeks ago. And yeah, it really, really delivered. Some players I think had really good games. I think Callum Hudson-Odoi was fantastic in this game. He looked super, super dangerous and deserved his goal when he got it. Cole Palmer as well, pulling strings for Chelsea. Again, looking really, really sharp. And it was just a really, really good game. It almost had it all.
Yeah, it was such an entertaining game of football, and I think you haven't even mentioned like the Morgan Gibbs White, who had a fantastic game. I thought Nicola Jackson had a decent-ish game. He was still leaving a lot to be desired. It seems like when his finishing is on point, his build-up play is awful, and when his build-up play is awful, his finishing is terrible. So it's always one or the other. I think Nottingham Forest can be incredibly proud of that performance, and it's been a very testing season for them. And I think a lot of clubs down there being in the relegation race is something that I would never want to experience personally, because it must be, your emotions must be all over the place. And the fact that if it wasn't for the point deduction, they would have 33 points, and then they would be probably a bit clear of Luton Town, and they wouldn't have to worry as much. The fact that they did it, and I think credit to Nottingham Forest and the side. I will say though, I mean, Chris Wood, we've sung his praises a couple of times this season, especially after that hat trick against Newcastle away from home. But my God, he's missed another sitter, an absolute howler. I think the ball comes in from the left-hand side. Morgan Gibbs White heads it, hits the post, and then it falls to Chris Wood. And he just reacts too slowly. He just doesn't get his foot around it, and he absolutely skies it. But I think, he did a fantastic job so far this season. And it is one where if Nottingham Forest did need to get something from this game, it would have been interesting to see if they did, because, they were in it. They were really in it. And if they didn't sit back and they didn't go just defend for that 2-1 lead, then maybe Chelsea wouldn't have come back into the game. But they did. And you've got to say fair play to Chelsea and Pochettino, because his substitutes worked. And he brought on Sterling. He brought in Reece James, who's finally back fit after his injury, had a surgery on his hamstring, now back. Is he going to make the England squad? We'll have to wait and see. But credit to Chelsea, because they played really, really well.
Yeah, two really sort of individual pieces of skill to get those two goals really late for them. Sterling with a lovely finish into the far corner, and James with a perfect cross. I mean, even Jackson couldn't have missed that one. It was a simple header for him because the cross was so good, and that is such a huge boost for Chelsea, not just in terms of having the quality of Reece James at right back, because Malagusto has been pretty decent. He's been fairly consistent. He's been a very, very good backup right back for them. But I think the quality that James brings on the pitch, that leadership that he brings on the pitch, obviously with being club captain, is huge for Chelsea. They do still need a few more sort of experienced players in that dressing room, like James, especially with Thiago Silva going. And I think you can see that in games maybe where things start to falter and you're sort of looking around for those players to really sort of pick the team up. And I don't think there's too many of them in Chelsea at the moment with the signings and the squad that they have acquisitioned. But James coming back, Sterling coming in, hopefully he can find a bit of form soon as well. Having those experienced players to come on is just such a good option for Chelsea off the bench, and got the 3 points. It was a very, very close game though. I was just about to say that maybe Chelsea deserved it, but I don't think they did. I think it was a really even game, and Forest hit the woodwork a number of times. They had that Wood chance, like you mentioned, and maybe a point would have been fair, but I've got to give all the credit to Chelsea for the way they came back. Showed a lot of character, especially away at Forest, which is a tough ground to go to.
Yeah, it did feel like a little bit of a stitch up going away to Nottingham Forest, a side who were fighting for their lives for relegation, and it's all games televised Saturday evening. It just felt like everything was set up for Chelsea to have a bit of banana skin, but they didn't in the end, and they got the win, and that's all that matters. Nicholas Jackson, 14 goals, 5 assists this season. And for someone who had a lot of critics earlier on, I think that's fantastic. I think Moyes Caicedo actually looks like a completely different player to the one he did at the beginning of the season. Looks much better. Maybe something to do with Conor Gallagher next to him. I don't think you can immediately just write off Enzo Fernandez because he is a fantastic player. He's a World Cup winner, and Chelsea paid a lot of money for him. I think he's a very good player, but I think at the moment, Caicedo, Gallagher, and Cole Palmer, that has to be the midfield three going forward. You saw Nkunku come off the bench. He's finally back, fit and available. So, very, very, very positive signs. And the thing is, Nottingham Forest, they didn't even need the win because Burnley lost, which confirmed their relegation back down to the Championship on the first time of asking, as it was Spurs 2, Burnley 1. I think we all expected Spurs to win this game, but I think it was just the fact that Burnley probably gave it to Spurs. I think some of their playing at the back was very poor in this game. I think they were giving the ball away very cheaply, as something that's been a characteristic of them all season long. And in this one, I think this game perfectly epitomized what they've been doing wrong all season.
Yeah, it does in a sense. I think the second half especially, they were really, really poor. But to give Burnley some credit, I think their goal was really, really nice. And I think their goal is exactly what they're trying to do. But it just comes in sort of 1 in 10 occasions where the other 9, they're giving it away in their own third or the midfield third, and teams are going and attacking them. But to give them some credit and to see where that game plan is trying to come on, I think their goal was absolutely superb. Started with the goalkeeper, picked up in midfield, skipped through 3 players, maybe too easily. I think that's definitely a weakness that Spurs need to look at, is that midfield, which seems so solid at the start of the season with Sarr and Basuma. But nonetheless, skipped through 3 players, opened up beautifully for them with a really nice through ball into Bryn Larson and a great finish. And I think that is exactly what they're trying to do. They just don't have the squad or just the right tactics. Just things aren't quite right for that to happen often enough. And as you've said, when it goes wrong, it really goes wrong. And Spurs had a lot of chances in this game. And it could have been another one where Spurs are scoring 4 or 5 if they were a little bit luckier with the way that Burnley were just giving that ball away.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Muric was at the heart of that. We give him a lot of praise for his shot stopping, and I think that's very fair, and you need to give him credit for that, but you also need to criticize him when it requires it. And I think he gave the ball away so many times, so cheaply. I think there's a moment where he got the ball from the right centre back and he tried to pass it out to the left centre back, and then the left centre back wasn't expecting it. They were on their heels. Brandon Johnson ended up picking the ball up, dispossessing them, and then if it wasn't for the fact that he went for a shot at the near post, then I think Spurs should have scored from that situation. There was another couple as well where the ball was given away far too cheaply, and you're giving the ball away in dangerous areas, and you're just inviting pressure. So I think it's one where I think Burnley have learned a lot about their squad, and I really do hope that Vincent Kompany remains in charge, because I think it would be good for him personally and the team, because you can then go back to the Championship. They won the Championship last year, so they will be favourites probably to go on and do it again if Kompany stays, and that will come with its own different pressures, and how they adapt to that will be interesting to see. But if they were to come straight back up, then I think you've got a pretty good gauge on which of these players are good enough for the Premier League again next year. I think recruitment will be better, because I think the recruitment, especially in the summer, was a bit hit and miss. Some of the additions in January have definitely come in and improved the side significantly. And if only those players were in the summer, and the style of play and the recent results have been throughout the season, I think Burnley will definitely be higher up the table than they are now. But Spurs, they needed to get the win. They absolutely did, to keep the chances of a Champions League place up and running. And the fact that, Pedro Porro and Mickey van der Ven, 2 very unlikely goal scorers on the sheet, but I think Van der Ven's goal was just absolutely phenomenal. The way he decided to cut back inside onto his left foot, and the fact that he was slightly off balance, didn't have a bigger bit of a backlift, and he needed to generate his own power. I thought for a centre back, that was a fantastic goal.
Yeah, I think both goals were sort of different ends of the defender shooting spectrum. Pedro Porro just absolutely stuck his laces through it, and it just flew in the top corner. We've seen that a few times, I think, from Porro this season, where he just absolutely lashes it. Sometimes it needs a bit more finesse. Sometimes, like it was this weekend, it just flies in the top corner. So can't complain about that one. And the other one was just so composed. He just opened up his body, curled it into that far corner, and a really, really nice finish. And I think the way the defenders were positioned, they weren't expecting it from him either, even though he is left-footed. I don't think they could have imagined he would be able to pull off a finish like that, like he looked like a striker. It was really, really nice. And yeah, on top of that, they did have a number of chances, Spurs, which they weren't able to put away, but ultimately it didn't matter, and they were able to get huge 3 points for them. Now they've got, as we said, they've got that City game. They've got Sheffield United on the last day, which is a big one and a very nice fixture for them. They need to get that win, and they need to hope that Aston Villa slip up against Liverpool and against Palace, which, as we said, for Villa are not easy fixtures.
No, absolutely not. And I think Spurs are in and around where they would like to be. I mean, last season, I think they only got 60 points. So they're already 3 points better off. And the fact that, in the last 5 seasons to get Champions League football, you needed 71 points, 71, 67, 66, 71. So they're in and around the ballpark that they need to be to get in Champions League football. It just depends on the season, how well the teams around you are doing. And I think if, they lose out to a very good Villa side, then I think you've got to say fair enough, because I think they have had opportunities to go ahead and go on and get Champions League football. They just haven't quite been able to get over the line in some crucial moments. And do you think, there's been a lot made about the Man City game, especially because, it could, if they beat City, they could potentially hand Arsenal the title. They will obviously go 100% for the win, but what do you make of the whole talk around, it would be better if we ended up losing the game because, you'd rather, want City to win the title than Arsenal win it. What do you make of that? And what do you make of the rivalry as a whole? Can you understand it? Can you see it?
I can understand wanting Arsenal to not win the title as a Spurs fan, but I can't understand when it has a detriment on your own position as a team. I think Spurs and Arsenal at times have had that over seasons where one team has been quite a decent way better. There was that period where Spurs were sort of finishing second, third quite consistently, and Arsenal were struggling to get into the top four. And you just want to see them fall off. But I think when it affects your own chances, like Spurs could get into the top four if they have that mindset of, oh, we don't want to give Arsenal the title, let's throw the game against City. If Villa go and lose their next 2 games and Spurs miss out by a point, you're going to be gutted. Like, why would you want Arsenal not to win the title more than you want to get top 4 yourselves? I don't quite get it in that sense, but ultimately, if it was Spurs going for the title, I would want us still to beat Man City, but then I would just hope that Spurs slip up on the final day. I think is a sort of a more normal compromise as opposed to the hatred of one club being sort of overruling your love for your own club.
Yeah, I just think it's a bit funny, but I can understand it, but also I think, yeah, Spurs are in a situation, if they were like 10th and mid-table, then, who cares? But when they still do have something to fight for, and to be fair, if they were in Villa's position and if they were favourites, then it'd be like, no, we absolutely have to win because we need to make sure we get top 4. I think it is just it is just a bit of fun, I think.
Oh yeah, 100%. If Arsenal were sitting in like you said 9th or 10th and it was Spurs going for it, I would just think throw on like the under 12s or something and just lose 20-0, give City some goal difference as well. Like, I would be all up for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that comes part and parcel with having a good and fierce rivalry like you do with your North London ones. But we need to stop talking about the title race and focus on the relegation, because it seems like it's effectively all over for Luton Town as they went away to West Ham and they lost 3-1. And yes, they're not mathematically relegated, but with the goal difference they need to overturn a 12 on the last day. It effectively feels like they are. And what have you, not just of this game, but of Luton Town as a whole, they've given it a fair crack. I think no one really has a bad word to say about Rob Edwards or his side, but they've just conceded too many goals this season, haven't they?
Yeah, and to be fair, I had them bottom of my prediction at the start of the season. I didn't think their squad was good enough. I thought they would be... I thought they'd be the complete opposite of what they've been, to be honest. I thought they would really, really sit back against teams because they wouldn't have that belief either that they could go out and beat them. But I think we saw that in the first half of the season in particular, that they really, really went for it. And I think that's something that has gained them a massive amount of respect from every fan in the Premier League. It is, as you just said, that second half form, conceding far too many goals. They have had a few injuries in that back line which haven't helped. It's just not been enough. And I think when you take into account Forest's point deduction as well of 4 points, and obviously Everton's as well of however many it was in the end, 10 I think, they are still a little bit way off. But I think compared to the expectations, the size of the club, the job that Rob Edwards and that squad have done is absolutely fantastic. And I think now they've got that belief we could see them back up in the Prem fairly soon. I think now we've seen how they play, we've seen that belief that they have, and it's a massive thing, and it's a huge thing in terms of momentum as well. So yeah, it's a shame, but unfortunately they just haven't been quite good enough, especially in these last sort of 9-10 games where it really matters.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I mean, you really thought to yourself, okay, they have some decent fixtures, especially in the last six, I thought. And I was saying to myself that I think that, Luton would survive the drop just because you expect them. They got themselves into a decent position in the last six games. They're not playing any of the top sides. They're playing teams in and around them in mid-table who don't have anything to play for. And you expect them to at least pick up a few more points than they have. But yeah, they haven't been able to do it. And I think they ultimately, on the balance of play, they deserve to be relegated. But they have had a lot of injuries, like most sides. But they should have like Bell, Kabore, Anderson out injured. I mean, Tommy Lockyer, what happened to him was very unfortunate. And if he was fit, who knows how they could have done. I mean, Marvis Nakamba's been out for a large part of the season. You would expect him to play in the midfield and really shore up that midfield, protect the defence. But it hasn't quite worked out. Injuries at the wrong time. And they've given it as good a go as they possibly can. But then West Ham, departing with their manager David Moyes, and I'm really glad that he got an applause and a round of appreciation at the end when he was doing his lap of honor with the rest of the team for the last home game. And I think it's when he's done a fantastic job. And I do disagree with the fact that West Ham are getting rid of him. I think, especially with no European football, I think one more season to really trim some of the fat around the squad and really invest properly into some signings, then I think would have been interesting to see. But you got to respect the decision. I mean, the fans have want better, attractive football. Not all of them, but a large proportion do. And I think it's sad because I think David Moyes doesn't deserve it, but I can understand it. And yeah, I think it's just nice to see him get a send off that I think he deserves.
Yeah, no disrespect to West Ham, but I'm not really sure what the aspiration of the next step is. I think David Moyes has got about as good out of sort of the club as he could. I mean, they've won a European trophy. I mean, even getting them into European football, I think, is an exceptional achievement. And I don't mean that in terms of disrespect to West Ham's squad or the fans or the club. I think it's just a lot of it's financially as well. You look at those sort of 8 teams, I think, ahead of them, looking at the traditional sort of big 6 plus Newcastle. I think the most that West Ham are going to be fighting for in the next couple of years is going for that 8th position, and it seems like that is something that David Moyes has got them to or got them near to pretty consistently over his time at the club. And I'm not sure what the club are really aiming for and how much better it's going to be without David Moyes. I think it's such a shame, and I understand it. Maybe their form, as you said, as of late hasn't been great. They don't play the most attractive football, but I think the position he's put them in, and unfortunately the position he's left them in, is just so good. It's sort of the best West Ham side we've seen, I think, of our lifetime. I think it's fair to say. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see who they get in. It seems like it's going to be Lopetegui from a lot of reports. What would you make of that appointment?
Yeah, well, I was talking about it last week, and I was kind of like umming and ahhing because I think he is a good manager. I mean, to have managed the likes of Real Madrid, Spain, to be linked with the likes of AC Milan, he's also got Premier League experience with Wolves, but it just feels like there is a bit of chaos isn't the right word, but disalignment with with the clubs he's been at, because at Real Madrid it didn't kind of work out. At Spain they weren't really happy with the fact that he was talking to players and causing a bit of friction between the Barca and Real Madrid players. At Wolves he wasn't happy, he wasn't getting the money. It does seem like he does come with a little bit of baggage, even though the fact that I think he's a very good manager. And I'm not sure how many years will he be at West Ham? Is it going to work out? I mean, what happens is if he drops out of the top 10, let's say, and I think there's a chance that Lucas Paquetá might also be off in the summer. I think Man City are sniffing around him. So there's all these variables, and I just think that David Moyes would have been a better manager, at least for another year. I think one more year, no European football, see how the side do with a whole week to prepare for games. I think they would be in and around that 6-7 position where West Ham fans probably want them to be. But I think the success of Aston Villa and Newcastle in recent years has really, shone a light on, what could be achieved. And Brighton as well, actually, I should mention. of what could be achieved if you, invest properly in your playing squad and play some attractive football. But I mean, there are so many top sides, and I think to say that all of a sudden that you're going to be in and around there and you want to be in and around there, that's all well and good, but you need teams to drop out of that top 4, top 6, and I mean, are they really looking like they're going to drop out of it? I don't think so. So it's going to be interesting, and we'll have to wait and see. Only time will tell, but I think I'm going to say I just don't think it's the right decision to sack David Moyes, regardless of who they bring in, even if it's Lopetegui, who I think might do well for a season or two, but I just don't see it. I don't think they're going to break into the top 4, and maybe some more period of consolidation would have been what I'd like to see. But we haven't even talked about the game itself. We should probably touch on that because West Ham did win 3-1, and I think their attacking play in this game was phenomenal. Is that how you saw it as well, Toby?
Yeah, they looked really, really sharp again. Looking at especially Kudus, I think he's just such a fun player to watch as well. He's got such quick feet. He's so quick himself. He is, I think, a fullback's absolute worst nightmare. You never know which way he's going to go. He's really, really two-way as well. He's such a good player, and he was on fire this weekend. And then James Ward-Prowse stepping up with a goal. Souček as well with the second, with a really nice finish from the edge of the box. And they just had too much for Luton to handle, really. And I think that's gonna be where I think like we've said with disappointment, just to go back on it and talk even less about the game, those attacking players, I suppose, trying to get the best out of them, looking at Kudus, looking at Bowen, looking at Paqueta and James Ward-Prowse, if you've said, when you've got a squad of that quality and those sort of attacking players of that quality, maybe you can sort of understand trying to get the most out of them as opposed to relying on the defence at times. Because when you see them playing as well as they did against Luton in this game, it makes sense in a way. I can sort of see the reasoning a bit more.
Yeah, they have the infrastructure to go to the next level. It's just, will they do it? And I think, try not to fly too close to the sun because you might end up getting yourself burned. But shout out to Earthy, the young lad who came on at the pitch near the end of the game, who got his first professional goal for West Ham, his boyhood club, and getting it after, I think it's his first involvement in the whole game after only just 3 appearances in the Premier League and 3 appearances for West Ham. So credit to him, and that's one moment he will definitely cherish for the rest of his life. And one moment I will definitely cherish is if I manage to beat you at Tenable.
Absolutely beautiful. But you won't be cherishing it, mate, because you're not.
Well, if someone doesn't end up skiving off episodes, then, I don't have to do a solo episode, and I actually have a chance of trying to catch up with you, because what are the scores? Because I'm still trailing, aren't I?
I've still got a point lead, and saying that I'm feeling a bit under the weather at the moment, so I think we might have to... We'll just move on to the next games. We'll give Tenable a miss again.
Unacceptable. Week. Get your shit together, all right, Tobes? We need to be sorting it out, because you need to give me a fair chance, a fair crack at the whip, because, I think it's only been, maybe, 3-4 weeks of Tenable?
Yes, four rounds done so far. I'm on 32 and you're on 31. So We're both averaging between 7 and 8 a week, which has been pretty good performance so far, I'd say. It's still gonna have a couple more left to go though, so it still could all change, as well as the bumper one on the final season, whether that's obviously the last weekend or the weekend after that, however it works. Still a few more rounds to go, still a lot to play for. And should we just jump straight into it?
Yeah, well, I'm gonna throw you into it, Tobes, because put some pressure on you. You're leading. So your tenable topic this week is, I want you to name me the 10 Premier League managers who have managed the most games. Your time starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, 10 Premier League managers with most games. There's got to be a couple surefires in here. Looking at Sir Alex Ferguson.
Yes, he's number second with He's second with 810 games.
810. Okay, number 1 must be Mr. Wenger.
He is first. He is tenable with 828 games. Not too many more.
Okay, I'm feeling like this could be a topical one, maybe. And that maybe when David Moyes announced he was gone, he was in that list, so let's go for Moyes.
He is tenable. He's number 3 with 693 and counting. So that's actually numbers probably a couple more, with Everton, Man United, Sunderland, West Ham, and Southampton. No, that's not Southampton. Ignore that. Ignore Southampton.
What is there? Is there someone who's managed Southampton in there? Maybe.
Maybe.
Not that I can even think of anyone who would have been at Southampton for long enough. Oh God, would Klopp be in there? He's had 9 seasons. That's quite a decent stint. But there's managers who've just been around, haven't there, for so long. Struggling here, Managers who have just been there's not many managers who have been at their club for too long. Guardiola's obviously been there a decent chunk of time. I don't think so. 9 seasons for Klopp. That's only going to be like 300 something games, isn't it? That's not going to be enough. God, why is this so tough? Someone like Big Sam, he's been around for ages, isn't he? Who are those managers that are always just... Oh God, this is shocking. Let's go for Big Sam. Let's throw him in.
Yeah, he is tenable. He's number 5 with 541 for Leeds, West Brom, Everton, Palace, Sunderland, West Ham, Blackburn, Newcastle and Bolton.
Nice, okay. Right. Are there any other managers who are there currently that might be on this list? Eddie Howe, I don't think would be on there. I'm going to write him down, though. But I don't think he would be. Pochettino was at Spurs for a number of years, and then obviously had Chelsea again, someone who could be in there. Klopp. I think I'm going to have to think a bit earlier, though, than all of this. Who else is in there? Surely he's got to be in there. Roy Hodgson?
He is tenable. He's number 8 with 416, managing Fulham, Liverpool, West Brom, Palace, Watford, and another side. Really done my research. Can't read my handwriting. Half your time's gone. God. 2 minutes left.
Okay. Right. I'm going to be gutted if I get one who's there at the moment. Sean Dyche, he could be on there. Oh, I don't know, though. I don't know. Sean Dyche. What about some slightly older managers? That's a big sides. Oh, Harry Redknapp could be in there. Yeah, he did Portsmouth, right? Harry Redknapp.
He is tenable. He's number 4. A minute and a half.
Okay.
4 to get.
Jose Mourinho. I don't think he's done enough, actually. He had about 3, 6, 7. I think he had about 8 and a bit seasons, which Klopp obviously had more. Poch, he was at Spurs for a long time. But how long? Don't think long enough. Oh God, this is so. Why am I finding this so difficult? Damn.
1 minute.
Let's just throw out some names. Let's go for Klopp.
It is not tenable. That is your first life gone.
He wasn't going to be enough. I'm going to throw out some more. Let's go Mourinho.
He is tenable. He's number 9, 363.
363.
Chelsea twice, Man United and Tottenham.
Let's go for Poch, just as another name.
He is not tenable.
No, I didn't think so.
30 seconds.
Who else? I'm trying to think of
oldies, noughties,
yeah,
and teens.
Yeah, it's those managers who are just around. Maybe like someone like Mark Hughes or O'Neill. Let's go for Mark Hughes.
He's tenable number 7.
Let's go for O'Neill.
He's tenable number 10.
Let's go for Eddie Howe.
It's not tenable.
It's not going to be him.
No, that's it. All 3 of 11.
Oh, I'll take 9 though.
You will absolutely take 9. I don't know how you've done that. I'll be completely...
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a very ugly round of tenable, but the points came clutch.
Yeah, Martin O'Neill was actually joint 10th with Rafa Benitez, so I would have given you whichever manager you said out of those. Yeah. And then you're missing number 6.
What clubs?
Oh, I'm trying to think. What? Oh, I've completely missed their clubs out. So Newcastle and Sunderland and Hull were definitely some of them.
What is his name? He did that little dance, didn't he? And then did he headbutt someone against Hull, maybe? Or
what? No.
Alan Pardew.
No,
is it Alan Pardew?
It's not Pardew.
Hull.
Hull City.
Chelsea. I honestly have. Oh, of course, it's Steve Bruce.
It is Steve Bruce, 476. For some reason, I just haven't written his clubs down. I've written everyone else.
Nice. I'll take a little 9 points though. I'm very happy with that.
It's because above him is Sam Allardyce, and I've written all of his clubs down, and he's taken the next line down.
Just taking the whole page.
He's taken the next line down, so I've thought I've written Steve Bruce's clubs down, but I haven't. But yeah. Anyway, 9. Nice. That's a great score.
Okay. I reckon you could get 10 here.
Oh, okay.
Just to put the pressure on you.
Okay.
But it's yeah. I'm just gonna jump straight into it.
Okay.
Okay. You have 5 minutes to name the top 10 highest scoring Africans in Premier League.
Okay. Africans. Let's go with Mohamed Salah.
He is, of course, number 1 with 157 goals and counting.
157. Okay, let's go with Didier Drogba.
Didier Drogba is number 3 with 104.
104. Okay. I will say Sadio Mane.
Sadio Mane, number 2 with 111.
111. Oh god. Okay. So the 3 straight off the back. Let's think. Okay, I'm gonna say Yaya Toure.
Yaya Toure is number 9 with 62.
Oh, okay.
I like getting the low ones first because you know how many you have to get, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. Okay,
Does help.
I'm not going to aim for number 10. Let's go a bit higher than that first. I'm going to write some down. I don't know why, but I'm thinking Victor Anichebe. I don't know why. Africans. Emmanuel Adebayor.
Adebayor is tenable, number 4 with 97.
Wow, okay. 97. Come on. Okay, I'm going to write them down. Solomon Kalou, but I don't... no, is he? Is Kalou French? No, he's not. Don't think so. Well, I hope not. Okay. Anyway. Man United... Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea. Oh God. Newcastle, not Demba, not Papi Stemba Cisse. They had another one. Whoa, No, he wasn't. He was English. Sholamiobi.
You're just coming up to half time now.
So I've got 5
2.5 minutes left.
Maybe it's not just strikers. Maybe it's midfielders. But who? Who?
You've got 3 strikers and 2 wingers left.
3 strikers, 2 wingers. Oh my god. Oh, I can't think. Okay, I'm going to say Victor Anichebe. It's not.
It's not Victor Anichebe. And I cannot believe that as a shout. That was the last name I was expecting.
I just cannot.
When you said that.
Yeah, I don't know why, but I had him in my head. I don't even think he's African. He might be. Is he African?
No, he was Nigerian.
Nigerian.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh my god, why am I struggling? There's some obvious names. I know I'm missing some.
There is 2 Nigerians on this list. You haven't mentioned either of them yet.
I know. I should get this. I should get more.
There is another Ivorian on this list.
Well, you said Ivorian, I think Gervinho, but it's not him.
And 2 players from more niche countries, I think, in the Prem. It's fair to say.
See,
one is a very, very niche country.
Yeah. God.
I think he's captain. I think his dad played for
them. Struggling. I know. Oh, I'm panicking. Calm down. Think of the countries. I can't think of the countries.
So you want two Nigerian strikers. One, both actually in sort of the early noughties, late 90s. One played for Arsenal. One played for Everton and Wigan.
knew I was right with thinking for Everton. I can't think. Come on. Everton. Hugo Rodallega.
It is not Rodallega, unfortunately.
Oh,
I think he's South American.
yeah,
but
that's
I'm
what
not sure from where.
I think. As soon as I said that.
So you've got 2 Arsenal players left, 1 Man City player, and 1 Crystal Palace player.
Just can't think.
Crystal Palace, Ivorian.
Oh, Wilfried Zaha.
Wilfried Zaha is tenable,
You gave me
number
that.
8.
Uh,
Man City winger.
no, don't say that. Oh, Riyad Mahrez.
Oh, just in time as your time is up.
What's the
That's literally a
countdown?
second left.
Was it telling me how much time I have left? That's,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 out of 10.
mate, that was awful.
Missing 3 players.
That was awful.
So you were missing a Nigerian striker. If you feed him, he will score.
Oh, the yak.
Yeah, it was Yakubu with 95. He was number 5.
Mm-hmm.
You had the Arsenal striker from the very niche country. I think Mario Lemina is from there as well.
I can imagine the flag with like blue, green,
and yellow. Yeah, he didn't play for Arsenal for too long, but he scored a lot of goals. He won the Golden Boot. It was Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang.
Oh god, yeah, that's bad.
Number 7 was 69, and the last one was a bit of a cult player in the Prem. He scored a very nice goal against Chelsea to round off his hat trick. It was Kanu with 54 goals.
Yeah. Oh, I should have done better. You helped me with Zaha and Mahrez as well.
To be fair, Zaha was a surprising one. I thought maybe Zaha and Kanu would be the 2 that, like, I guess, to struggle to get an 8. But yeah, 38 points you're on now, Mev, and I'm on 41.
Yeah, I'm shaking you next week. Absolutely. You're not going to get any. No chance.
Bring it on, mate. Bring it on. Bring it on.
And you still tell me I get 10. But yeah, it's fine. It's fine. It happens. I'll just accept that you're better than me. And yeah, I'm trying to think of a segue now into Wolves Crystal Palace, and I'm not sure I can think of one. Oh yeah, Wilfried Zaha. Something of
you missed. Oh no, you didn't miss Wilfried Zaha in the tenable, and Crystal Palace have not missed Wilfried Zaha.
There we
go. With Elise and Eze in banging form. There you go.
There we go. Yes, as Crystal Palace, I think have won 6 of their 7 games this season when both of them have been starting. And yeah, as they carry on their winning ways, as they went to Wolverhampton Wanderers, they went to the Molineux and beat them 3-1. 2 goals, 1 goal. 1 lovely goal by Elise, 1 by Mateta, and 1 by Eze. There we go. All 3 of the front 3 on the score sheet. And yeah, front 3 that's, going to be very hard to stop next season as well.
Yeah, he's got the best out of them almost instantly, Glasner. They look so fluid. They combine so well. They can play in a number of different areas as well, which I think is a huge thing. Elise can happily, I think, hug the touchline or really drift into midfield. Eze can drop right back and support Wharton and Hughes in the middle. And Mateta can either play on that last man, going in behind, or play as that sort of target number 9. So just how fluid they are with their system, with the wing backs, it's really, really nice to watch. And they are a team that I'm really excited to see next season, see how they can build on this amazing form and try and carry it over to next year.
Yeah, although I keep saying it, I mean, Elise needs to calm down with how well he's playing, because he's going to get snapped up, he's going to be taken away, and, if that does happen, Crystal Palace should demand an absolute monstrous fee, because he absolutely deserves it. But I think, one front 3 which hasn't been doing too well has been Wolves'. I mean, Cunha and Hwang did start, but they're still missing Pedro Neto, and they've kind of gone off the ball recently in the last 7 games. I think they've really picked up 1 win, and Wolves, the performances haven't screamed they're on the beach, but the results definitely have.
Yeah, it's a shame as well, because I think in sort of that middle of the season, even despite their injuries, we were still really excited about Wolves. Hwang and Cunha did sort of combine for this goal again. Cunha getting another goal. He's had a really, really good season. And I think, yeah, as you've said, there's a couple teams, I think, in that sort of mid-table that just need to get into the summer and really rebuild and go again next year. And we should see the best out of them. It's just whether we can see the best out of them for the whole season. That's the real big question mark about these sort of mid-table sides who are trying to be pushing into sort of those sort of lower European positions, sort of looking for Conference League football. Is always a possibility now that 8th place could be offering European football, which is a big incentive for the mid-table, and it makes the whole season a lot more exciting too.
Yeah, but I think Gary O'Neill came out with some very worrying comments in this pre-match press conference when he was saying about the fact that there's not going to be much money available. They might have to sell one of the star players. And I'll be honest, I mean, if that's one of the front three, then they might struggle and they're going to have to recruit really well to try and replace one of those. But did you see the thing today about Bayern Munich wanting Oliver Glasner and then Crystal Palace saying, no, you can have him if you want, but you got to pay 100 million. 100 million Crystal Palace are demanding for them. Do you not see this?
No, I did not see that. That is absolutely mental.
No, yeah, Bayern Munich apparently wanted Oliver Glasner, and they were like, okay, we're ready to offer 18 million, and Steve Parish was like, no, I want 100. And I just thought to myself, God, I mean, one fair play Crystal Palace is making sure you don't let your manager go, especially after he's done so well since coming in. But also on the other hand, we're going to have to start seeing a world where managers are costing the same amount as players. I mean, you could try and sign like two number nines for that with like worth 50 million each. And I just thought, yeah, absolutely bonkers. I was surprised you didn't see it actually. It's all over Twitter.
Yeah, that is absolutely crazy. And I can see why Munich are after him because he had a fantastic time at Frankfurt. And I think that's a really good point about managers being like transfer fees. I don't know why they're not higher. Like 18 million, I guess, is a decent chunk for Glasner. But when we see managers move around so much, like, I don't think it will be surprising if we see managers moving for sort of like 40, 50 million, because when you think what they can bring to a club and the impact they can have, it can be just as much, if not more, than like a star player. So, yeah, why not get the managers what they deserve and what the club gets out of them and what they're worth to the club? It'd be interesting to see, because that will set like a precedent for other clubs. If Crystal Palace are slapping a price tag of 100 million on him, who knows what could happen.
Yeah, especially when nowadays in football everything is so data driven and stats based. When you look at appointing a manager, you look at it the same way as you would a player, and you think to yourself, if you find yourself with a good manager and one that you like, and then one that you're not willing to sack if they have a bad run of games, as we've seen this season, a lot of clubs have been very patient with their manager. I mean, they are responsible for the whole squad, and you'd always back the manager over a player. So, we might see a world where clubs have started to pay managers, absurdly amounts of money for 3 to 4 years, and then they might sell the manager on to another club. I mean, it could be a world we live in, but I think it might be a little bit more time before that happens. I think the players are still the main commodities at the moment, but who knows? Who knows what the likes of Pep Guardiola and Jurgen Klopp will go for when they do eventually sign for new clubs in the future. But two sides who are very happy with their managers at the moment are Bournemouth and Brentford, as Brentford won 2-1 away from home. And this game was, 0-0 for a very long time, up until the 86th minute when they just absolutely exploded into life.
Yeah, 2 goals ruled out for Solanke early on, which I think were both correct decisions. And then Tony with the penalty not given, which again I think was a correct decision. And it kept it 0-0 until those sort of last 10 minutes where it just exploded. And all pretty decent, well worked goals. I think the Mbeumo goal, the one where Flecken launched it up, Wissa did this lovely touchdown into Mbeumo, into his path, and finished it really well, was so nice. And I think that was a real good summary of Brentford and how Frank really likes to play that direct football sometimes. And 2 players combining, and as they did, they combined for the second goal as well. 2 players combined who have been sort of Brentford's star players, both missed parts of the season for various reasons, and have really, really stepped up where Tony's form or Tony's suspension has sort of hampered things for Brentford's attack. So yeah, a crazy end to the game, and some nice goals to finish it off after a long stalemate.
Yeah, and I think Iraola has also signed a 2-year contract extension this morning as well, and that's definitely good signs, because a lot of people have been saying, he's done a fantastic job at Bournemouth, maybe with a lack of elite managers in the market, that maybe need to take a chance on someone a bit younger, someone a bit less experienced, but who has quality football under him and is willing to transform a side and work with the project. And Iraola has done absolutely that. I think he's a very attractive manager for a lot of clubs looking at someone looking to replace their number one. And I think the job he's done with Bournemouth this season has been absolutely fantastic. And I think Brentford, it's nice to finally get some wins under their belt. I mean, they've had a long season, probably didn't want to be in and around the relegation zone as close as they have been. They poured away in the last few weeks, but I think there was a couple of moments where it did look a little bit dicey. And the fact that Wiesel and Mbeumo now are back fit and available, and there's no injury issues with AFCON or anything like that, I think it's really helped, and it's promising for the future when Ivan Toney does inevitably leave. But 2 sides slightly further up the table are Newcastle and Brighton, as this ended in a 1-1 draw. I think some very well worked goals in this game by Veltman and Longstaff, but I think Probably both teams were probably a bit disappointed with the fact that neither of them managed to get the 3 points, with both looking to finish the season on a bit of a high.
Yeah, Newcastle definitely would have needed those points a bit more. I think a win would have been really, really good for them, especially with sort of Chelsea chasing at the heels, United still up and around there as well with a couple games left. And as we said, that big sort of Man United Newcastle game could potentially decide a few European places. Brighton, on the other hand, I think they just needed it for morale. They're too far off getting any sort of European football again this season. They have missed sort of March and Mitoma, and a lot of players looking at Ferguson through injury. They just haven't looked the same. The second half of the season, they have been really, really poor. And I think Brighton were maybe feeling a bit fortunate to get a point considering how they have played recently. And it's a bit worrying when you look at if they didn't have that amazing start that they had, the amount of points they picked up there where they could be this season. It's one where they really do need to rebuild in that summer. Hopefully, I guess in a strange sort of silver lining way, it means a few clubs are not looking at De Zerbi as much as they were at the start of the season. So hopefully he'll get a full preseason and a full season with the next year, try and rebuild, get that squad back, get a few more signings in there as well. I think they need a little bit more experience. Hopefully a better season next season, and Newcastle as well. They'll be looking maybe a little bit disappointed this season from the heights of last year, but they have done really, really well given the circumstances of their injuries, and still hopefully going to finish the season strong.
Yeah, and do you know what? They absolutely need to win the last 2 games as well, because they're on 57 points, Chelsea are on 57 points, and Man United are just behind on 54. And of course, they got the midweek game against Man United. So it could be one where if Man United win that game against Newcastle, that going into the last game of the season, that all three teams would be on 57 points, which will be incredibly interesting because it would be nice to see, the goals as they go in real time, seeing all of a sudden Newcastle are 6 now, Chelsea are 6 now. So they really need to try their best to try and secure Europa League football next season, because I think it would really help the project of Newcastle a lot more if they have Europa League rather than Conference League. Although I think if they get Conference League, they've got to be very firm favourites to go in and win it and go all the way, especially considering what West Ham did last season and what Aston Villa have done in the competition this season as well. But I think for Brighton, the 2 last games, they're away to Chelsea and then they're away to Man United. So 2 very winnable games, 6 points. But if we're talking about, Arsenal and Man United as a boring game, then I think Everton 1, Sheffield United 0 was definitely the icing on the cake in terms of boring games. Definitely an end of season game, one relegated side, one side who have avoided relegation, and some fun in the sun as Everton won 1-0. Is there anything you really want to talk about in this game, Toby?
I think only 2 points from this game, I guess, is another Everton clean sheet, and their defensive record has been absolutely superb this season. Pickford, Tarkowski, Branthwaite, I think have all been exceptional. Something really, really strong for them to build on, and I think if they can sort of build that attack and take a few more chances, I'm not sure if they need any more signings or just a bit more work on the training ground. They are definitely a team to look out for next season, and as we've said, without that points deduction, they are right up there, even knocking on the door of Europe again this season. So we'll see next season how they can build on that, and hopefully they can. The other point being that this goal, unfortunately, gives Sheffield United the gold medal for most goals ever conceded in a Premier League season, and that includes when the Prem was 22 teams, is it? So, yeah, not a good record to hold. 101 goals now conceded for Sheffield, and they have got Spurs on the last game of the season who are fighting for top 4, so could be stretching their lead at the wrong end of the table and the wrong records to hold, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to give a shout out to Sean Dyche, because I think considering all the circumstances, 2 points, 2 separate point deductions, I think 8 points in total, there'd be 11th in the table if it wasn't for that. And I think all the furore and the media around him, I think he's done a fantastic job. And I think slightly snubbed in the manager of the year candidate. I think that there were some really top managers this year, but I think it's one where I think he's definitely deserved a lot more credit than he has. But yeah, I think that's it for this week's episode of the Football Fellowship Podcast. Thank you everyone for joining. If you like this episode, please give us a like and a subscribe on YouTube. And if you listen to us on Spotify, please give us 5 stars. Tell a friend. We're here every single week, and we'll be here again next week to cover the final week of the Premier League season. We're so almost there. We can almost go out and enjoy the sun, enjoy a few beers. But before then, make sure to tune in next week, because we're going to find out who's won the Premier League title. We're going to find out who's got top 4. And we're going to find out, as I think we all know, who's officially going to be relegated from the Premier League. So make sure to subscribe, make sure to like, follow us, all the good stuff. Join us next week, as you don't want to miss it. Thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.